So we're saying that the Ivy League is asset rich.
First of all, there are 8 Ivy League schools.
Right.
We have a chart. We can put a chart up on the screen. I can't remember whether this chart has all the list of all the schools. There are 8 of them, but I think it does. Maybe not. Yeah, there it is. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, University of Pennsylvania, Columbia, Cornell, Dartmouth, and Brown, all but Cornell, which is a land-grant college, part of it is, are private institutions. And there you can see on the chart how much their endowment is. For instance, if you look over to the right in the red, Harvard's endowment says it's $37 billion there. It's been up higher than that since then. That was a couple years ago. Right. So again, now that we can see how many Ivy League schools there are, what's this story?
So the story is, working in middle-class families that sacrifice to put their kids through school, the students that graduate, and they're saddled with all of this debt. It's an emotional moment when they read our report. I shared this report with some of those families, and they were virtually in tears based on their family's sacrifice to put themselves through. We show, and I highlighted it in the speech, that the educational mission of the Ivy League now is dwarfed by their government contracting business and grant receiving business. And most people didn't know that, even though they have these massive endowments.
Okay. Most of your figures are over a period of 5 years, like 2010 until 2014 or 15. How much money, how much federal taxpayer money went to these 8 schools in that period? So
federal taxpayer money was $25 billion. And the tuition payments that came in over that period was $22 billion. So the federal contracting and grant receiving business now of the 8 schools of the Ivy League dwarfs its educational mission. We took it a step further and we said, if the 8 schools of the Ivy League were a state government, where would they rank? And they would have, on federal payments into state governments, the Ivy League would outrank 16 state governments.
And the Ivy Leagues aren't the only ones getting all this money.
No, higher education across the country, a lot of money is flowing.
And we're not here to pick on the Ivy League, except that you've done this study. Why did you pick the Ivy League?
Well, I think, when we started exploring it, we were tuned into it by the big endowments, we felt that it needed, first of all, I was interested in it because the more we dug, the more incredulous I became, because it looked like at every level, whether it's local property taxes, which they basically don't pay, whether it was state subsidies, federal payments and subsidies, at every single level, taxpayers were funding the Ivy League. And so our preliminary findings broke at the Wall Street Journal in a piece by James Pearson with the title, "The Ivy League Doesn't Need Taxpayer Help." The Ivy League's endowment problem is only going to get a lot worse. Over the course of the next 20 years, at the rate of growth, they could have $1 trillion endowment. So I think there needs to be reform in the federal funding of the Ivy Leagues, and upstate New York Congressman Tom Reed has vowed to hold hearings at House Ways and Means on the issue.
So what would the Ivy League say about the money they're getting from the federal government? What's the purpose of that money? What is the federal government taxpayer get back from the Ivy League?
So I think what they would say is, I think they have an entitlement mentality toward the federal dollars. I would think that they say most of the grants are funding critical medical research, National Institute of the Health grants, about $10 billion into the 8 schools over a course of 6 years. And they would say, what do you want us to cut? Do you want us to cut heart disease research? Do you want us to cut cancer research? What do you want us to cut? And our point is, it's not a zero-sum game. They've got this massive endowment. And out of that endowment and their donor network, they could fund all of it every year without taxpayer help if they wanted to do so.
Why aren't they doing it then?
Well, I think it would create a little bit more work for them.
Got the study right here. It's rather thick. But for the average person who wants to get into this material, how do they do it?
Just come to OpenTheBooks.com. On the middle right hand of the website, under the reports heading, that's where all of our oversight reports are. And we do actually a quarterly oversight report on a tranche of federal data.